This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
When something like this happens, the ripple effect doesn't stop at the edge of the crime scene. It doesn't end with the family who was attacked or the children who survived it. It keeps moving through the community, through every witness who passed that man on the trail, through every neighbor who now looks out their window and wonders if the guy next door is capable of something like this. In this case, people aren't just grieving, they're scanning. They're remembering. They're second-guessing themselves, and many of them are reaching out to us. We've heard from people who think it was their neighbor, their coworker, their ex. Some are spot on with details, some aren't, but every one of them is feeling something real: fear, confusion, and desperate for clarity. So today, we're bringing in psychotherapist and author Shavaun Scott to help us unpack it. What kind of person tapes over their license plate, dresses in black on a 100-degree day, straps on tactical gloves and a vinyl gear bag, and walks a crowded hiking trail ready to kill? We're not talking about the what. We're talking about the why. Why this place? Why this day? Why this family? Why this symbolic of an attack? Was he hunting something in his own head, a vision, a fantasy, a family that reminded him of something he never had? Shavaun lays out how these kinds of offenders often operate under delusion, convinced they're on a mission, that they're justified. And more often than not, it's not about the victims, it's about the role the victims play in their script. That's how someone can commit this act of violence with no personal connection, because in their mind, it's not personal, it's purpose. So what does that mean when someone this bold, this visible, this volatile just disappears? Is he watching the news, lurking nearby, planning to strike again? We dig into that and more in this episode. Let's get into it. The community right now, it's amazing when something like this happens because everybody thinks they know who it is. And I applaud everyone who has sent us information, sent us pictures, and please do keep sending us anything that you know and anything that you may think, because we're going to take a look at it. We'll pass it on to authorities if that need be. But we'll dig. We will dig, and people can do that. I want them to know that. You can go to our website, truecrimetodaypod.com. There's a contact section right there. It's True Crime Today Pod, or you can reach out directly through Facebook or any other social media. I'm watching it quite tightly right now as people come to us and give us information. That's how we've done most of this, has been individuals reaching out, the witnesses, the dispatcher, the guy who has the camera of the vehicle that we have exclusively shown here at the Hidden Killers podcast. So please do keep doing that. But what would this guy look like? I mean, not in terms of physical appearance, but let's say, this is your neighbor. A lot of people are going, I think it's my neighbor. I think it's this guy. I think it's this person's ex. And I'm getting everything and anything right now. But what truly would someone like this possibly be like if they are your neighbor? Would there be any red flags to look out for if you're suspecting that, hey, maybe that guy could be the person?
My guess is this is a person who's rather isolated. And if he's your neighbor, he probably doesn't wave and say good morning. This is a person who stays away from other people, probably not a happy family man, who shows up at the soccer matches. I mean, this is probably a person who stays to himself. And he may come off as kind of odd. He may come off kind of creepy, but he may not. He may just be very, very private.
He walked through a very heavily populated trail full of families. The eyewitnesses that we talked to described it as a very busy day on the trail, despite it being 100 degrees. It doesn't stop people around here. They're used to it. They like to hike in the heat. And they described the trail as, like I said, heavily busy and in a way where you look forward and you look behind you, and your odds of seeing someone ahead on the trail or behind you are pretty high. And that was basically most of the day. So to decide that you're going to do this on a trail where people are constantly flowing through it, in a sick way. I mean, he lucked out. Nobody just walked up on this murder taking place in real time. They found the bodies just a few moments later. But that says something to me about this guy. The fact that he was taking that risk of being walked up upon, or did he care? I mean, or is that part of the delusional thinking that may be going on with someone like this?
My guess is, if he sees himself as God's special agent or something, he may have been fairly convinced he was going to get away, which he has so far. But it's hard to read, into that exactly what could have been happening. But again, a rational murderer. Are there rational murderers?
Is that a word? That's a new one. The rational murderer.
Well, we can say a person more grounded in reality, even if, let's say, he had a reason to target this family, which doesn't sound likely, but even if he did, he would not have done it in this way, in this place. The goal would have been to do something where he wasn't going to be seen and discovered immediately. So that, again, is what made me think psychotic. There's something really off here.
And it also leads into the other question, because everyone's trying to dig and look and, okay, well, what's going on here? They moved here about 3 weeks ago to a small town of Prairie Grove. I actually used to live there. It's a little kind of bedroom community just outside of Fayetteville. I actually walked up and down the streets of it on Sunday, going to antique stores. Nice little town. It really is. And I talked to several of the shop owners, and I said, have you heard about this? Because that's where they lived, and it's very close to the park. No one even had any idea that day of what was going on, but that's because of the police messaging and not getting the information out fast enough. That's a whole other topic we're not going to get into right now. But the fact that this occurred in this kind of a setting, it makes you wonder what was going on. He had not started his job yet. The husband, the father, he was supposed to be working as a dairy delivery driver. I believe he transferred from a company in Montana to Northwest Arkansas. So there's not the work history here where maybe there's somebody mad or things of that nature. He wasn't even at the job yet. So the idea of an angry coworker or a targeted hit don't seem to make a lot of sense. And if it was a targeted hit, that would be one of the sloppiest hits we've ever seen. Yeah. But there are sloppy hits out there as well. But again, we don't know much about the family. They don't necessarily stand out to me as anything particularly where someone's going to order a hit on them. I don't know what the criteria honestly is for that, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like that. Would you be ruling out things like that at this point psychologically when you're trying to zone in and hone in on who actually did this?
Yeah, that would be the worst hitman ever. Yeah. Completely counterintuitive. It wouldn't make a bit of sense. So yeah, I just go back to a guy who had a reason. He was very clear in his mind on what that reason was, but the rest of us would look at and say that is not rational. Doesn't make any sense. Obviously,
we don't know anything about the guy. But the way that this attack was carried out in this community that loves to hike and loves to go on these trails, and there's hundreds of them everywhere, with that going on, what do you think? Is this guy a threat still? Do you think he's looking to attack again? Is this something where, so far he got away with it. People are not going on trails at this moment in time in this area. At least a lot of people are not. Is this the beginning? Does this look to you like this could be the beginning of someone who's trying to be a mass killer? Or is this someone out living their horrible, dark fantasy and now disappearing into the ether?
It could be either. My guess would be that he's having a sense of euphoria after fulfilling the fantasy. Mm-hmm. And so is there a chance that he could repeat it? Sure. Mm-hmm. And we, don't have any information at this point to indicate either way, but it's certainly possible. It may be that this was the big thing and this would hold him over for a while. But would there be an urge to repeat? I would be concerned about that.
What's the likelihood that he returns to the area? The trails are closed off specifically at Devil's Den right now. There are other parts of the park that are open. But obviously, we see this quite often with killers returning to the scene. We saw Kohberger driving back by the house just hours after the murders took place. Mm-hmm. Is this likely someone who, like I said, as of right now, he has not been found? If he has been by now, well, then there's that. But as of this moment, is this likely someone who's hiding in plain sight? Do you think this is someone who is hiding in the shadows again for fear that maybe law enforcement does know who they're looking for, and just have not announced that as of yet, and they're trying to track this man down?
Yeah.
What do you think's going on in this person's mind at this moment?
Yeah, that was one of my thoughts, is that law enforcement may know a lot more than they're letting us in on at this point. I actually hope that that's the
Hopefully.
case, that they are onto some leads here by now. And so is he very likely could be monitoring the news very closely to see what's coming out and what people are saying about identifying him. Might he go back to the scene of the crime? They sure do tend to have a compulsion to do that. And that would, I think, go back to how rational is he? Because I think a rational person would get pretty far away from there, but he may not be. He may be lurking in the area.
There's a lot of witnesses who did see him. Several witnesses said they knew something was off. How does hindsight guilt show up psychologically in bystanders? They knew something was off. Did they, or is that kind of one of those things that come up later on where it's like, well, looking back? But the folks I talked to, they all four of them said the next day when they found out the news about the park, they had passed hundreds of people that day, but the one that stood out to them was this guy.
Mm-hmm. I would trust that. And, sometimes people will reflect, and it's very distressing to be the one that got away. It's like, why did we get away? And so that, again, that's this, the grenade effect from violence, is that it impacts so many other people. People wonder, could I have done something to interrupt this? They go over it and over it in their minds. And basically everybody in the area will feel a certain amount of trepidation, I would think, when they're out hiking or out in nature, because, as I use the term a lot, bad surprise, and that's what trauma does. It's like this bad surprise, and people start to feel this anticipation of things like that. And we can't say that that's non-rational, it makes perfect sense. So I would expect that anxiety in the general public there is going up, which is why I think it's so helpful for people to find other people to talk about these feelings. And, then when he's caught, there's the collective sigh of relief. Everybody in the community can go, phew, But does it affect the way people move through the world forever? Yeah, it does. The cases that I've seen through work, it affects my sense of safety in the world. Places I'll go, places I don't go. And, you had mentioned something earlier that I think is very relevant, that predators often, when you get into the mind of a predator, how did you choose your victims? They'll say, I looked for the person that would be easy to hurt. Yeah. And we hear that over and over again. And so I think, again, being a woman in the world, and I'm a rather small woman, I have several friends that are 6 feet tall women, and I think they move through the world differently than I do, being a rather small woman. And I think these are all things that it's helpful for us to recognize and talk through. How do we feel safe?
This is the part people struggle with the most. It's the not knowing who he is, not knowing if he's still out there, not knowing if he'll do it again. And maybe worst of all, not knowing if the next time you go out for a hike, someone like this is going to be on the trail behind you or coming at you. Because as Shavaun said, predators look for patterns. They look for vulnerability, and they often choose people not because of who they are, but because of what they represent. A happy family, a perceived weakness, a symbol of something they can't have, can't be, or can't control. That's what makes crimes like this feel so violating, not just because of the brutality, but because it feels like it could happen to anyone. And when you stack that on top of poor communication from law enforcement, a killer who hasn't been caught, and a community that's been left to fill in the gaps with fear and guesswork, it creates a kind of emotional aftershock that just lingers. For the people who saw this man on the trail, many are now dealing with what Shavaun called hindsight guilt. That gnawing feeling of, did I miss something? Or could I have snapped or stopped it? Or could I have stopped it? Could he have snapped? The truth is probably not. But that doesn't stop your mind from going there. And that's why it's so important to talk about this, not just as crime reporting, but as collective trauma. Because even if you weren't there, even if you didn't know the Brinks, this is shaking something in the community and how people move through the world in who they trust and whether they feel safe just going outside. So what do you do if you're one of those people? You talk about it, you stay aware. And most importantly, you see if someone you know or you know someone who lines up with the behavior we're describing. Don't second guess yourself. Reach out. Say something. The community deserves clarity. The children deserve justice, and the man who did this doesn't deserve another day of freedom. We'll be watching, and we hope you will too. Keep the tips coming in. You can reach out to us on our website, truecrimetodaypod.com. There's a contact section there, or directly on social media. Just find us, search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, and press subscribe, and you can reach out that way. I am watching all of those messages very carefully right now. Please also let us know in the comments section what your thoughts are on this case on YouTube. Again, just search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski to find us on YouTube. The same search can be done wherever you download podcasts to take us on the go as a podcast. We'll keep watching. Until next time, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.